My boyfriend and I were supposed to come out together, but he bailed on me. He didn't just bring a girlfriend home. He went on the school's online forum and called me a pathetic faggot. Furious, I went to a gay matchmaking event my mom found for me. I never expected the guy sitting across from me would be a new professor at my university. Later, my ex tried to get me back, but the man beside me took the phone. He tilted my chin up, his voice lazy. Your auntie is a little busy right now. Don't bother him unless it's important. I'm gay. I yelled the words in the living room, bracing myself for the worst as I waited for the final judgment. But to my surprise, the other 3 people at the dinner table just glanced at me, not even pausing with their chopsticks. What was that supposed to mean? Was my voice too quiet? Did they not hear me? After a moment of thought, I slammed my hand on the table, hopped onto a stool, cleared my throat, and shouted it again. I am gay. My voice was strong, powerful, booming. A pair of chopsticks clattered to the floor. Finally, Emily looked up, her face a blank mask. Wow, so brave of you. I could hear the sarcasm in her voice, and I instantly got angry. I'm coming out here. Can't you guys show a little respect? Emily said, what's the problem? You want a medal or something? My mom added, should we throw a party? My dad chimed in, I think that's a great idea. We could finally get back some of that wedding gift money we've been shelling out. Wait, is this how normal people are supposed to react? The thing is, we've known for ages. Huh? I was completely baffled. I couldn't remember for the life of me when I could have possibly slipped up. My big sister rolled her eyes at me. Back when you were a teenager, you made the whole family watch Brokeback Mountain and Farewell My Concubine, and then you forced us to write 5,000-word essays on them. The hints weren't exactly subtle. If we hadn't figured it out, we'd probably need to get our heads checked. Her words left me stunned. Thinking back, I guess that did happen. But at the time, I hadn't even realized I liked guys yet. I just thought they were artistically significant films. I can't believe I accidentally kicked my own closet door down. Talk about a happy accident. All right, stop grinning like an idiot. Don't come bothering us again until you've got a boyfriend to show for it. My mom smacked me on the back of the head, her voice dripping with undisguised annoyance. I quickly wiped the goofy smile off my face and happily grabbed my phone, heading for the door. I had to tell Mark the good news immediately. I wonder how things were going on his end. Mark, you're not gonna believe this. I'm sorry, Mark's in the shower right now. This is his girlfriend. Can I take a message? My sentence was cut off by a young woman's voice on the other end of the line. Girlfriend? If she was his girlfriend, then who was I? It was just one sentence, but it was overloaded with information. My mind went completely blank. Her voice was still ringing in my ears, a dull, buzzing sound. Maybe his family didn't approve, so he found some random girl to trick me? Or maybe he'd been kidnapped. I don't know how long I stood there before the ping of a text message snapped me back to reality. I opened it, full of hope, only to have that hope crushed by the voice message that landed like a sledgehammer on my already fragile heart. Mark, Leo, let's break up. I quickly typed back, what's going on? But a red exclamation mark on the screen told me everything I needed to know. I'd been blocked. It was only after I realized he wouldn't answer my calls, texts, or even my DMs that the truth finally sank in. I'd been dumped. On the day I came out, I got my heart broken because my boyfriend got a girlfriend. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling the sheer absurdity of it all. I met Mark in high school and we ended up at the same university. We were together for 4 years. Like any normal couple, we had our share of fights, big and small, but I never once thought we'd break up. And I certainly never thought he would betray me. Our story is pretty simple. He was the first person like me that I met after I figured out my sexuality. During that sensitive and pride-filled time in high school, liking other guys had sent me into a spiral of confusion and self-loathing. I felt like a freak. But Mark told me there's only one kind of orientation, the direction your heart points. He was good-looking, good-tempered, and gentle. It was easy to like him. After finding out he was just like me, I stuck to him even more. Our high school classmates used to joke that we were conjoined twins. I really believed that even if we could never get married, we would never be apart. but his actions proved me wrong. He showed me that promises of forever are just an illusion, and I was the fool who'd been daydreaming all along. Mark was my first love. He took up 4 years of my life, which isn't long in the grand scheme of things, but it felt like everything. Those 4 years might not have been earth-shattering, but they were filled with beautiful moments. The shock of the breakup hit me hard. I locked myself in my room for 3 days and 3 nights, ignoring everyone. I sat up in bed, completely dazed. Before I could even speak, Emily dragged me out from under the covers and hauled me into the living room. "Damn, sis, have you been taking boxing lessons? When did you get so strong?" Emily threw me onto the sofa and slapped a stack of photos of men down in front of me. "Take a look," she said, her voice booming. "See anyone you like? Sis, isn't this like illegal?" "Kidnapping is a crime," I said weakly, watching her expression. Emily shot me a glare, the picture of disappointment. "You think I want to be doing this? You're a grown man, and you're acting like the world is ending over one breakup. Who are you trying to impress? It's my first breakup. I don't have any experience with this. You've got to give me some time to process. The best way to get over a breakup is to start a new relationship." My mom handed me a flyer. On the colorful paper, a few large red words stood out. "True love knows no gender. Let us connect you." Holy crap, it was a flyer for a gay matchmaking event. I stared at it in disbelief. I'd only been inside for 3 days. Had the world really become this progressive? Gay matchmaking events were a thing now? This had to be some kind of scam, right? I shook my head frantically, refusing. But faced with the threat of my sister's fists and my mom cutting off my allowance, I finally gave in. The next day, I took an Uber to the address on the flyer. I didn't rush in. Instead, I watched carefully from about 20 feet away. A middle-aged woman stood under a pink sign. In front of her were 3 smaller signs that seemed to say, "Top," "Ver," and "Bottom." With one hand on her hip, she commanded the scene with the air of a general directing her army. Under her direction, the chaotic crowd immediately formed 3 neat lines. The scene was truly something to behold. The woman turned her head, and as her sharp gaze swept in my direction, I quickly grabbed a nearby chair and sat down. I already regretted this. This so-called gay matchmaking event was hard to describe. Luckily, the woman just cracked her neck and didn't seem to spot me. I let out a sigh of relief. As I looked up, I realized there was someone sitting across from me. The man was holding a newspaper, a cup of coffee resting on the table beside him. So pretentious. Suddenly, a thought struck me. Could this guy also be here for the matchmaking event? With that in mind, I sat up straighter and gave the man a thorough once-over. That's when I realized my initial assessment of him as an old guy was way off. He was wearing a white shirt with the top 2 buttons undone, revealing the shadow of his collarbone. A pair of well-tailored trousers hugged his long, crossed legs. The sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, showing forearms that were pale but had the lean lines of a mature man. He wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. His hair was neatly trimmed, and his eyes were deep and clear. He wasn't old at all, he looked maybe 28 or 29. It was just the steady, calm aura about him that made you want to guess his age up. Does a man like this really need to come to a matchmaking event? I couldn't help but ask my question out loud. Hearing my voice, the man lowered his newspaper. He frowned slightly, as if he didn't understand what I meant. He followed my gaze to look behind him, and then, as if realizing something, he turned back to meet my eyes, a faint smile playing on his lips. I was taken aback. I couldn't help but stare a little longer. I never thought a man could look so handsome when he smiled. My sister was right. I couldn't keep wallowing in the pain of a breakup. Cheaters should be kicked to the curb. What's the difference who I date? If I'm going to date someone, it might as well be someone hot. I'm Leo. We should be friends, I said, trying to sound smooth as I held out my phone with my contact QR code displayed. The man glanced at my phone, raising an eyebrow in surprise. Then, his intensely sharp gaze swept over my face like a hook, making my heart pound in my chest. I don't know how much time passed, but just as my phone screen was about to dim, The man finally took out his own phone and scanned the code. "Elliot," he said. His lazy voice was deep and rich, with a hint of nonchalance. "Sexy." The word popped into my head and refused to leave. The air around us suddenly grew quiet. Neither of us spoke. I'd never been in this kind of situation, a purposeful meeting, with anyone like me besides Mark. For a moment, I had no idea how to start a conversation. Elliot wasn't reading his paper anymore. He would casually let his eyes fall on me, but whenever I looked back, he would subtly shift his gaze away. I started to get annoyed. I felt like he was toying with me. "Are you playing with a cat?" I asked, my tone sharp. Elliot lifted his eyes to meet mine. After a long moment, he spoke slowly. "I thought I was flirting." "Flirt? Flirting?" My eyes widened in disbelief, and my cheeks flushed crimson in an instant. What kind of line was that? Even after all my time with Mark, he had never said anything so forward. I couldn't believe this man, who looked so prim and proper on the outside, was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. "Are you cursing me out in your head?" Elliot asked, taking a sip of his coffee. "How did you know?" Realizing I'd said my thoughts out loud, I slammed on the brakes and covered my mouth. I only lowered my hand after sensing he wasn't angry. "Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. You're kind of cute, you know that? Kiddo." The playful lilt at the end of his sentence sent a shiver down my spine. It was immediately followed by an overwhelming sense of embarrassment and anger. I'm a 6-foot-tall man, and he just called me cute and kiddo? That was the last straw. Just as I was about to stand up and give him a piece of my mind, my phone rang. "Leo, you need to get back here now. Something's happened." It was my roommate, his voice urgent and panicked. Liam was our dorm's RA, usually calm and patient. For him to sound this frantic, it had to be serious. I made a split-second decision to put my personal grievances aside. I shot Elliot a fierce glare and threw a "we'll settle this next time" over my shoulder before turning and catching an Uber back to campus. I don't know if I was just imagining it, but on the short walk from the campus gate to my dorm, it felt like twice as many people were staring at me as usual. I rubbed my chin, confused. Did I get twice as handsome overnight? Before I could think about it any further, my path was blocked by a pile of junk in front of my dorm room. At my feet were a dozen of my textbooks scattered on the floor, my name still faintly visible on their crumpled covers. My comforter was thrown in the middle of the hallway, stained with water and marked with several muddy footprints. Even my computer was lying on the ground at a bizarre angle, a long crack running across the brand new monitor. Damn it! Who did this? I stormed into the room, filled with rage, and my eyes immediately met those of the culprit. A guy I didn't recognize was sitting casually in a chair, flanked by a few of his buddies. They didn't look friendly. Liam and my other roommates stood off to the side, looking completely helpless. "You're Leo?" the guy asked, walking up to me and sizing me up rudely. "Do I know you?" Liam hurried over, tugged on my sleeve, and whispered, "He's Kyle, from the athletics department." The athletics department? I frowned, racking my brain. I was sure I'd never seen this guy before, let alone had any problems with him. "This is just a little warning," Kyle said, his expression menacing. "Next time I hear you're messing with Zoe, it'll be more than just your stuff getting tossed." "Zoe is the belle of the art department," Liam whispered, practically acting as my personal assistant. "She's Mark's girlfriend." "Whose girlfriend?" Hearing that familiar name made my head spin. I froze. I thought Mark had just found some random girl to fool me, but it turned out he actually had a real girlfriend. If she was Mark's girlfriend, what did that have to do with this guy? As if reading my mind, Liam explained in a low voice, "I heard Kyle has been trying to get with her for a while." Clicked instantly. He was a simp. "What's with that look?" Kyle demanded, noticing the pity in my eyes. He glared at me, flustered and angry. "Venmo or Zelle? What are you talking about?" The laptop was $1,500. My collectible figures, $300. I glanced at the mess on the floor. "I'll round up the rest of your mess to $200. That comes to $2,000. Pay up. If you don't want to pay, I can always call the cops." When they didn't move, I pulled out my phone. Breaking and entering, destruction of private property, Oh, and let's not forget harassment. Do you think the school will give you a disciplinary mark or just expel you? You. Kyle's fists clenched, his face turning pale with anger. What? You want to hit me, too? Go ahead. You'll end up in jail and I'll end up on the dean's list. That did it. The guys behind him finally started to panic. They pooled their money together but still came up a couple $100 short. I was feeling generous. Keep it, I said. Use it to buy a clue. And maybe try not to be an idiot next time. They heard the sarcasm in my voice but didn't dare say a word. They just scurried out of the room. But as Kyle passed me, he stopped. Faggot. He spat, his voice filled with disgust. Home-wrecking piece of shit. I didn't even react until his back disappeared down the hall. Besides my family and Mark, I hadn't told anyone about my sexuality. How did he know? And what was that about being a homewrecker? Leo, you should probably check the school forum. The university forum was the #1 source for campus news, and it was also where students went for all the gossip. The site was flooded with rumors and exposes. As a former veteran lurker, I never thought I'd see my own name pop up there one day. Shocker. Business school hottie is gay. And a homewrecker. Is this a moral collapse or just human nature? The headline was explosive and incredibly eye-catching. I clicked on it, my face blank, but I froze when I saw who posted it. Mark 23. I have a girlfriend, and I'm not gay. I hope you get the hint and stop harassing me. The post included screenshots of our chats from when we were dating. The 2 images were cropped in a very specific way. To an outsider, it looked like I was the one constantly blowing up his phone while he gave cold, one-word replies. 1 sentence, 2 pictures. In an instant, I was painted as a pathetic, clingy admirer. Maybe because it was the most dramatic thing to happen on campus in a while, the comment section was on fire. They were always together. I thought it was just a bromance, but I guess it was a romance. What romance? It looks like Leo was just harassing him. Leo being gay, shock level 100%. Leo being a homewrecker, shock level 10,000%. Mark's probably thinking, I thought you were my bro, but you were trying to get in my pants? I'm in the same major as Leo, we've talked a few times. He doesn't seem like that kind of person. LOL, you can't judge a book by its cover. He was probably just putting on an act for you. College students are pretty educated and open-minded. Liking the same sex probably wasn't a big deal to them. Their focus was almost entirely on the homewrecker part. I scrolled down. It was all more of the same. The few comments defending me were completely buried under a mountain of hate. I honestly didn't understand why Mark was doing this. He broke up with me out of the blue, and I accepted it. Screaming, demanding answers, begging him to stay, that was ugly, and it wasn't my style. I wanted to give the 4 years we spent together a dignified ending, but it seemed like he was determined to smash even that small hope to pieces. I used my roommate's phone to message Mark, asking to meet up and talk. After all, we'd been together for 4 years. I wanted to leave things with a little bit of decency. 3 days passed without a word from him. I looked at the empty message thread and sighed. Mark, oh Mark, I gave you a chance. After getting Mark's class schedule from a friend, I went straight to his classroom to confront him. It was between classes, and the massive lecture hall was packed with at least 200 people. That number was perfect. I walked up to the lecture stage and tapped on the desk. In an instant, nearly every eye in the room turned to me, including Mark and his girlfriend, who were sitting in the middle of the room. The forum post had been trending for days, making me a campus celebrity. The moment they saw me, people started whispering. Some even pulled out their phones to record. I was satisfied with that reaction, too. After all, I was here to clear my name. I plugged my USB drive into the computer, and a PowerPoint presentation with over 300 slides appeared on the big screen. 3,454 photos and over 6,000 screenshots of our chats. They didn't just document my relationship with Mark, they documented 4 years of my life. When the last slide faded, the entire lecture hall was dead silent. I guess they were finally realizing they'd been played, that they were just another part of the mob. I scanned the crowd. Mark sat in the middle, staring blankly. The girl next to him didn't look too happy either. Was she kept in the dark? Or did she know everything and choose to forgive him anyway? Either way, I had no intention of dragging her into this. I cleared my throat and, under the gaze of hundreds of students, finally spoke. I'm Leo from the business school. I'm sure most of you have heard of me recently. It's true that I like men, but I don't think love changes in quality or quantity because of gender. What matters is whether the person you love is worth it. I was in a relationship once, but as you can all see, it didn't have a happy ending. But you have to move forward. Love isn't everything in life, but I hope none of you let one bad experience stop you from having the courage to love again. Maybe you just haven't met the right person yet. Finally, I wish you all the best in your studies and your lives. Clap, clap, clap. A sudden round of applause from the doorway broke the silence, and then the whole room erupted in deafening cheers. I looked toward the source of the first applause and froze when I saw the person's face. Elliot was leaning lazily against the doorframe, holding a book. A small smile played on his lips, and his charming eyes were full of laughter. What was he doing here? Dude, class is starting. What are you still doing up there? Liam pulled me off the stage and out the door, letting out a long sigh of relief. Who was that? Him? He's a new professor the school hired. I heard he just got back from overseas. It's been about a month, right? He caused a huge stir when he first came because he's so handsome. You seriously didn't know? Professor. My composure cracked. I hadn't been on the forum in ages. I had no idea the school had a new professor. So that day, I was flirting with a professor? Oh God, I wanted to die. Thinking back to how Elliot acted, he must have known I was a student here the whole time. Was he messing with me on purpose? Rage burned away my reason. I opened my chat with Elliot and started furiously typing. You're a professor? Why didn't you tell me? Was it fun messing with me? Were you laughing at me that whole time? Did you think I was pathetic? I sent the barrage of messages, but there was no reply. I'd just been venting, but now that I'd calmed down, looking at the angry questions in the chat, a cold sweat started to form on my back. What was I doing? I was interrogating a professor? I must have a death wish. It had only been 2 minutes. I could still unsend them. I was about to do some damage control, but it was too late. Elliot had replied. I didn't know you were a student here at first. I wasn't hiding it from you on purpose. I wasn't messing with you. I wasn't laughing at you. I thought you were cute. He answered every single one of my questions. Cute again. But unlike the last time I heard that word, I wasn't angry. Why was my face getting hot? Do you have plans in a bit? What did that mean? I looked down and typed. No, I have one more class. Wanna come with me? No way. An hour later. Most people who sit in on a class with someone sit next to them. When I sat in on a class, I was literally in the class. We were close, though. I was sitting right in front of him. Elliot's voice was incredible, deep and magnetic. He didn't lecture like the old, stuffy professors. Everything he did, every gesture had a special kind of charm. Even though I couldn't understand a word of the lecture, judging by the other students' reactions, he was extremely popular. A gentle tap on the desk in front of me made me lift my head groggily. Looking around the empty classroom, I realized that class had ended at some point. Is my lecture really that boring? You fell asleep? Elliot chuckled. I stood up, scratching my head sheepishly. The truth was, there were so many photos and chat logs that I'd pulled an all-nighter making the PowerPoint. I hadn't slept at all. After getting dinner with Elliot, he drove me back to campus. I reached for the door handle, but it was locked. Give me your hand, the man in the driver's seat said softly. Whoa, isn't this a little fast? We're already holding hands? At this rate, we'll be kissing on the next date. My mouth said no, but my body was very honest. Shy and flustered, I timidly extended my hand toward Elliot, but instead of intertwined fingers, I felt a cool object being placed in my palm. I looked down. It was my USB drive, the one I'd forgotten in the classroom. Oh, it's the USB drive, I said, disappointed. My voice held a hint of sadness I couldn't even hide from myself. What else did you think it was? Elliot turned to look at me, a cryptic smile on his face. His gaze settled on me, and I felt like he could see right through me. It wasn't a comfortable feeling, like my secret hopes were being exposed. Nothing. What else could it be besides a USB drive? I snapped, my tone sharp and defensive as I tried to protect my last shred of pride. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. Don't be mad. A large, warm hand covered mine. His thumb gently stroked my palm in a soothing gesture. In an instant, blood rushed to my head. A tingling sensation shot from my hand to my heart and spread through my entire body. The sound of my heart thundered in my ears, as if telling me, "Leo, you're done for. You're falling in love." I felt like I was walking on clouds, light and floaty all the way back to my dorm. Dating a professor, this was going to be exciting. As summer turned to fall, the university's annual basketball tournament began. Walking into the gym, my eyes immediately found Elliot sitting at the officials' table. As if to fit the occasion, he was wearing a sleeveless athletic shirt. His usually slicked back hair was down today, making him look as young and vibrant as a college student. Noticing my stare, he looked up and gave me a small smile. I winked at him and then joined my team in the rest area. "We're up against the athletics department today. I heard that jerk Kyle is their captain. You don't think he'll target you, do you?" The dramatic saga between me, Mark, and Zoe had spread across the entire campus. Naturally, a lot of people also knew about Kyle coming to cause trouble for me. I shook my head. This is our home court. With everyone watching, I doubt he'd dare to do anything. As it turned out, I had seriously underestimated how shameless he could be. I was lying on the ground, a searing pain shooting through my right ankle. Kyle stood over me, his face impassive, as if he hadn't been the one to just slam into me. "Leo," a familiar voice called out. The next second, I was being lifted off the ground. The sudden feeling of weightlessness made me instinctively wrap my arms around Elliot's neck. I leaned against his chest, listening to his steady, strong heartbeat as he carried me all the way to the hospital, the pain in my ankle throbbing with every step. "It's a fracture. This will take a few months to heal properly. You need to rest and avoid any strenuous activity." I looked at my leg, now in a cast, and wanted to cry. I snatched the bill from Elliot's hand and said indignantly, "I'm making that bastard Kyle pay for my medical bills." Elliot helped me into a wheelchair and patted my head, his voice full of affection. "Okay, I'll go find him." As Elliot pushed me out of the hospital, I started to worry. I wouldn't be able to move properly for months, and I didn't want to bother my roommates. Things had been a little awkward in the dorm ever since my sexuality became public knowledge, and I definitely didn't want to ask them to take care of me. Besides, I didn't want to owe them any favors. Suddenly, my future living situation became a real problem. I stopped the wheelchair and looked up at Elliot. I fluttered my eyes, putting on my best innocent act, the hint obvious. "Uncle Elliot, you wouldn't happen to need a live-in maid, would you?" Elliot looked down at me and said with great regret, "I don't need a maid." I started fidgeting with the hem of my shirt, pouting. He can't even take a hint. Clueless old man. But he leaned in, his warm breath tickling my ear. "I am looking for someone to warm my bed. Interested? Old pervert. It's not even winter. Who needs their bed warmed?" I cursed him out in my head, but I couldn't stop the smile from spreading across my face. And just like that, I weaseled my way into Elliot's house. Of course, I didn't actually warm his bed. I took the master bedroom while Elliot moved into the guest room. It almost made me feel like I was the owner of the house. Besides teaching, Elliot also had a lot of research experiments to run. So most of the time I was home alone studying from notes my classmates sent me. The last thing I wanted was to fail my finals. What was that? Did Elliot forget his keys? I hobbled on my crutches to the entryway to open the door, only to see a completely unexpected face. "Leo, what are you doing here? Am I at the wrong place?" Mark took a step back to look at the apartment number, his face a mask of disbelief. "You're saying Elliot is your uncle?" Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. This was beyond ridiculous. I get my heart broken, go to a matchmaking event, and end up with my ex-boyfriend's uncle. You couldn't even write this stuff in a novel. "Leo," Mark reached across the coffee table and took my hand. His face was full of a sorrow and regret that he couldn't hide. "I regret it. I told you I'd take you home to meet them, and I wasn't lying. I tried to test the waters so many times, but my parents are so against it. I was just too scared to say anything. But you brought a girlfriend home. That doesn't seem like a spur-of-the-moment decision. It seems pretty premeditated, I said coldly, trying to pull my hand away. But he was holding on too tight, so I just stared at him. His lie exposed, Mark's face turned beet red. He was speechless. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but sigh. Mark, the moment you put me on blast on the school forum, we were done. I'm not a saint. I'm not going to let someone walk all over me and then shamelessly crawl back to them. And I will never forgive anyone who cheats. I wasn't the one who made that post. It was Zoe. She took my phone. Leo, you have to believe me, I never wanted to hurt you. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with a desperate stubbornness. I shook my head. It was so disappointing. I never thought the kind, gentle person I once knew could turn into this. It was like a crack had formed in my memories, letting out a rotten stench that told me some people had been decaying in the past for a long, long time. Fine, let's say Zoe made the post, I said, seeing his stubborn expression. Couldn't you have deleted it? Couldn't you have explained? What, did Zoe tie you up and hold you hostage? Mark, stop making excuses. Blaming it all on a girl just makes you look even more pathetic. That sentence was the last straw. Mark's shoulders slumped, and the light in his eyes faded, as if all his strength had been drained away. His lips turned down in a bitter, helpless line. Looking at him, I found it almost funny. Some people put on an act for so long, they end up fooling even themselves with their own performance of deep love. Click. The sound of the front door opening came from the entryway. I looked up to see Elliot frozen in the doorway, his dark eyes fixed on my and Mark's clasped hands. A wave of panic hit me, and I quickly yanked my hand away. Mark looked over at the sound of the door. He froze for a second before muttering, "Uncle Elliot." Then, as if a thought occurred to him, he suddenly stood up and looked back and forth between me and Elliot. "What's going on with you two?" he asked tentatively. His question shattered the last bit of hope in his heart. His eyes widened in disbelief. As if dealt a massive blow, he stumbled backward toward the door, but just before he left, he turned his head back. "Leo, if this is your way of getting revenge on me, then congratulations. You win. Are you serious, dude? You couldn't just leave? You had to try and frame me on your way out?" I looked at Elliot's darkening expression and silently cursed Mark 800 times over. The door slammed shut. Elliot removed his hand from my shoulder and walked silently toward the kitchen. I hopped after him as fast as I could and squeezed in beside him. "Professor Reed?" No response. "Uncle Elliot?" An eyebrow twitched. "Babe?" His eyelashes fluttered. Fine, if he was going to ignore me, then I had no choice but to bring out the big guns. I grabbed him and forcefully turned him around to face me. Then I leaned in close to his ear and whispered, "Husband?" The next second, the world spun, and he lifted me onto the kitchen counter with one arm. Elliot held me tight, resting his chin on my head. I could feel his heart beating strong and steady against my cheek. Patted his back. "This isn't about revenge," I explained. "I know. I'm just a little scared. You're young, full of life. You have endless possibilities and choices. And I'm not sure if I'm just a distraction for you, a way to get over your last relationship." I was surprised by his honest confession. I never thought the calm, confident Professor Reed, who seemed to handle everything with ease, could have such an insecure side. It was actually kind of cute. To make the insecure Professor Reed feel a little more secure, I insisted that he move back into the master bedroom. Under the noble excuse of making it easier to take care of me, of course. "Professor, my leg is itchy," I said, propping my cast on Elliot's lap so he could scratch it for me. "Where?" "A little higher." "Higher still," I said, milking it for all it was worth, making up all sorts of demands. But Elliot was good-natured and indulged me completely. "Not there yet?" he asked, and it was only when his warm hand landed on my thigh that I let out a satisfied chuckle. A small night light was on by the bed. Skin against skin, we could both see the fire igniting in each other's eyes. "The doctor said you're not supposed to do any strenuous exercise." Elliot's voice was low and hoarse. I couldn't tell if he was reminding me or himself. That's why I'm not moving, I replied cheekily. Sparks flew, and the heat between us was undeniable. I watched his face get closer and closer. Just as our lips were about to touch, my phone rang. It was Mark. Leo, I'm so sorry. I still can't get over you. I love you. His voice was slurred. He was obviously drunk. I was about to say something, but the person next to me took the phone. Elliot caressed my chin, his voice slow and deliberate as he spoke into the phone. Your auntie is a little busy right now. Don't bother him. He hung up and tossed the phone onto the floor under the bed. I looked up at Elliot and teased. Busy with what? What do you think? Our eyes met and we both knew. And we were busy all night.